Okay, here it is. Oh man, this thing is heavy. Ugh. And what do we got in this thing anyway? Let me show you. Alright, so what do we have in here? Well, folks, inside this box are not one, but two Obendorf Mauser Model 3000s chambered in 375 H&H Magnum. Man, I tell you what, this is not take one. We have been at this for a while this morning, so hopefully we got it now. Buckle up, here we go. Hey there, folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with any of the background racket that is going on out there right now. We're on location where life happens, and sometimes there's stuff going on that interferes with what we're trying to do in here. Seems to be the case today. This is an unplanned video that I'm doing in response to a comment that I left on a video shared with us by Hootie Hoo yesterday concerning a Browning 375 H&H Magnum that he had seen at his local pawn shop. And by the time he decided to go back and get it, it was gone, and he was lamenting that. And he mentioned in his video that if you saw something and you wanted it, you better strike while the iron was hot because it might not be there afterwards. So I had commented to him and told him I've messed around and missed out more than once. We actually did a video on that here just a while back. But I also told him that I've got a passion for collecting 375 H&H rifles myself. And so while I have talked about them on here a little bit in the past, I've actually shared two of the three with you on here before. We've talked about this one briefly. We've talked about the one back there before. But I've never talked about the one that I have here in front. So a little bit of history goes into it. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, when I was a young fellow, I had an old man who was a positive impact in my life. He was a mentor to me, and he taught me a lot, not only about the ways of the world, but a lot about firearms, reloading, bullet casting, self-sufficiency, self-reliance, working with your hands, all kinds of stuff this guy taught me. And he's actually the gentleman that we had mentioned in our muzzle loading video just a few days ago. He also is the one that got me hooked on the 375 H&H. This rifle back here was his rifle. I shot it extensively when I was a young fellow. Back then, it cost about $2 to pull the trigger one time. That was probably 25 years ago. So you can imagine how much it costs to pull the trigger now. Moving forward, he and I parted ways. He moved one place, I moved another place. And I had kind of kept in the back of my mind that when I was financially able to do so, I wanted to get myself a rifle just like the one that he had. Moving forward to about 2009, I think it was, so pushing 15 years ago, I found the rifle that you see there in front online. It was on Gunbroker. It was at a pawn shop. It was out of Flint, Michigan. And it had an opening bid on a 30-day auction of, I want to say, it was $899. It might have been $849, but I think it was $899. So I reached out to the fella that had it listed, and I asked him a couple of questions. I started by asking him if he could tell me anything about the history of the rifle, and then I asked him if he would be willing to end the auction early and sell me the rifle outright because I had been looking for one for a very long time and had not found one. He embellished and told me a great deal about the rifle. He said that it belonged to a gentleman that he knew who had passed away. The guy had lived in Flint, Michigan, had worked in the auto industry, and had a passion for plains game hunting, and he had built the rifle and he had taken it to Africa to plains game hunt more than once. So concerning the rifle itself, it's a Obendorf Mauser Model 3000, 26-inch barrel, which is pretty much par for the course with the 375. This one has been magnaported. It's free-floated, glass-bedded, has a glass thread crisp tuned trigger, and it's adorned by a Leupold VX3 3.5 by 10 duplex reticle scope. So, having told me all that, he regretted to tell me that he had no interest in ending the auction early and selling me the rifle outright. So, reluctantly, I decided I would just sit and watch it and hope for the best. Well, as it turned out, I believe it was February when I bought it, and hunting season was over for the most part. So there weren't a whole lot of people buying hunting rifles right then. And waking up in the middle of the night, logging into my gunbroker account, and jumping on it right at the last minute, I got the rifle for the opening bid. With the tax and shipping and the FFL transfer, I have about $1,000 wrapped up in what I paid for that rifle 15 years ago. Well, uh, since then, I've shot it quite a bit. I've enjoyed it. I've used it as a conversation piece at the range with other folks before, and just absolutely loved it. And I was completely content with my one 375 H&H rifle. Well, then the gentleman that I told you about fell ill. He got cancer. His daughter contacted me. She said, "Hey, Dad's dying. He wants to see you." So I drove through a hurricane to go see him, and surprised the heck out of me. He gave me the rifle that you see behind it. So that's why I have two of those. Now, this one he carried in Alaska. It was a little bit rusted, a little bit pitted. The furniture is kind of rough. It's got an ill-fitted uh, recoil pad on the back because the back end of the stock's a little bit busted up, and it's actually seen some significant field use, and that's reflected in the condition of the weapon. But it's also adorned with a loopholed scope. That's a VX2 1x6, kind of a dangerous game setup, and that's what he used it for. He was in bear country with this rifle. So he gave it to me, so now I have two of them. Well, I had mentioned that I had two of them to a guy that I worked with, and he told me he had one that he had purchased for a trip he was planning on taking to Alaska that never happened. And he said, I've been sitting on it for a long time and actually been thinking about getting rid of it. Long story short, he made me an offer on it that was so good, I picked it up. And so now I have three of them, and I probably don't need any more of them, but if I ever got the opportunity at a Ruger number 1 with the Mannlicher stock or a CZ 550 Safari Magnum, perhaps, I might pick up either of those two. But just wanted to bring these out, share them with you, show them to you. We're not going to the range today. I will plan a trip to the range with the 375 sometime in the near future. Now here's some bonus footage for you. For those of you that don't know what a 375 H&H is or what it looks like, allow me just a couple of minutes to give you a real brief generalized history of the cartridge. For starters, here in front of the rifles on the table, I have set out a 308 Winchester round next to a 375 H&H for size comparison. You'll see it is substantially larger than the 308 Winchester. The 375 came out around 1912. It was designed at the behest of professional hunters in Africa that wanted something that could be light and portable and make use of smokeless powder and get them out of jams caused by rich fellas on safari over in Africa. They wanted something that could stop or drop just about anything on the continent, and they wanted to be able to do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. So Holland & Holland designed the 375 H&H. Prior to the 375 H&H, which is a true Magnum length action, longer than a 30-06, they had messed around with belted Magnums, and they had what was called the 400 375 H&H, which was probably technically the first belted cartridge, but it wasn't a true Magnum like this one. The belt on the cartridge has absolutely nothing to do with the increased chamber pressure of a Magnum. Rather, it was merely the way that the cartridge head spaced inside the rifle. What that means is that's what stays put when you fire the round so the brass doesn't go all over the place. That had to happen because, as you'll notice, the neck shoulder of the cartridge is very tapered. There's not really a shoulder on it like there is on the 308 in order for the rifle to head space there. And the design was made that way to make use of the strands of cordite that were available at the time for loading smokeless powder. It was just easier to fill the case capacity with the long spaghetti-like cordite strands. with a rifle that had a nice smooth taper to it. That resulted in easy feeding and easy case extraction, which also worked out really well for rifles that were chambered for dangerous game environments. So I could go on and on about it. I'm probably not 100% right on the way that I described it, but suffice it to say, it's the granddaddy of the belted Magnum cartridge. And if you look on things like your 7mm mags or your 308 Win Mag, the parent cartridges for those were, in fact, the 375 H&H. And it has remained a popular option for professional hunters, both on the African continent, but also up in like Alaska for, the past century. So it's a really cool cartridge, and it's available in some really cool rifle designs. And I'm glad that this hornet's nest got stirred up and that we were able to talk about it a little bit on here. So let me know what you think. Do you want to see these things out at the range? Do you want to see what they can do? You want to watch me beat up my shoulder shooting them a little bit? Let me know down in the comment section down below. And Adam, thanks for spawning the idea. I appreciate it. Until next time, take care. God bless.